Afternoon, then year five, and welcome to today's English lesson. So please, if you can, as usual, open up your books, English at the top of your page. You've got today's LO and today's date there as well. So you can put them on your page. Now, I do want to warn you today, just to say that there will be quite a lot of reading going on. We're going to get through 2 chapters today. And I know this isn't the most practical way of doing things. We do it a little bit different if we were all in school, but it's going to have to be a little bit different, unfortunately. So I'm going to read through these chapters. So make sure you're following along and listening to it as much as you can, okay? Because it's quite a good book, this so far. Lots of twists and tales in the journey, okay? So as usual, we've got a little image before the start of our chapter. So just have a little think to yourself, what do you think is happening in this picture? Who do you think the people on the beach are? Why do you think that maybe looks like they're crying? Why do you think they might be crying? Okay, so have a little think as I read through the 4th chapter of our book. So 4th chapter, Cirque. As soon as we sighted land, we made for it. We beached the ship and dragged it up out of reach of even the fiercest wave. Once the ship was safe, the storm abated. It was plain that this tempest had been sent by Poseidon. My men sank into the dark despair. They sat on shore and wept, but I am always craning my neck towards a horizon, yearning for the place where the sea meets the sky. I decided I would explore this place that our bitter fate had brought us to. I climbed a hill to survey the island. Not far from where we'd landed, there was a forest. In the forest there was a clearing. I saw in the clearing a white palace of a strange design. This island was inhabited. Perhaps these people could provide us with some way to placate out or outwit the sea god. I ran back to the ship to tell my men what I had seen, but it was deserted. I found their footprints leading into the forest. I followed them into the clearing I had seen from the hill, but between the palace and me there were a pack of lions and wolves. I drew my sword and crept towards the first of them. It was a lion. As I approached it, it closed its eyes, flattened its ears, and purred. I could stroke the velvet fur between its eyes. It licked my hand. Next I approached a wolf. It rolled onto its back and showed me its belly to scratch. What kind of wild beasts were these? When I reached the palace, I looked through the window. I could see my crew. They were sitting round a table laughing and singing, eating and drinking as if they were home. Out of the shadows behind them came the mistress of this place. Long-limbed she was, pale-skinned, dark-haired, and dark-eyed. She brought them cheese and wine and honey and barley meal. As they ate, I saw her take a wand from beneath her skirts. She touched each of them in turn. As each man was touched, he dropped the cup he had been clutching and stared at his fingers as they grew together. His arms and legs shrank to stubs. His belly swelled and his nose stretched into a snout. These were no longer men, for sitting around the table I could only see pigs. The lady clapped her hands, and the pigs flocked from their stalls and followed her into the shadows. Now I understood. The lions and wolves had once been human. She had tested them and had found them wanting. Half of me was furious, the other half was terrified. I drew my sword, intending to rush in and attack, but then all the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I knew this sensation. I knew this meant that I was in the presence of a god or goddess. Sure enough, shimmering above me was the messenger of gods, wing-heeled Hermes. He was in the guise of a beautiful young man. Odysseus, this is Circe. She is a woman of great knowledge and power. If you enter this place with no protection, you will suffer the same fate as all of the others. But if you have the strength of character to follow the instructions that I am about to give you, not only will your crew be restored to you, but you may gain some of the knowledge you need to find a way home. The gods visit us in dreams and visions. Sometimes they tell us truths, but sometimes not. Sometimes they tell us half-truths to betray us. I saw it happen at Troy. Hermes is not just the messenger of gods, he is also the god of trickery and storytelling. But what choice did I have? I could not sail my ship alone. Hermes led me into the forest. He showed me a plant, black of root, white of petal. Molly its name. This, he said, would protect me against Circe's enchantments. He picked it from the ground as only a god could do. He told me to pouch it within my cheek. I bowed my head to give thanks. When I lifted my head, I was alone. I was shaking as I approached Circe's place. She opened the door and greeted me, but I did not meet her eye. I knew that if I looked into her eye for even a moment, I would be enthralled by her. She led me to the table. I ate and drank, but all I tasted was the bitter root of Molly. Suddenly, I felt something cool touch my neck. Circe was standing over me with her wand in her hand. She gasped to see that her magic had no effect. I leapt to my feet. With my sword, I struck the wand out of her hand. I showed her the sharp end of my blade and said, "You must promise there'll be no more tricks and restore my crew to their human form, or you'll learn why they say my name means trouble." "Trouble?" she said. 100 years ago, there was a prophecy that a man would come who was worthy of the knowledge I bear. The prophecy said his name would mean trouble. You are Odysseus, Laertes' son, and you are welcome here. I promise I will only give you what you desire." She picked up the wand and led me outside into the fierce sunlight. She walked to the pigsty and touched each beast in turn, and as she did so, the pig once again became one of my crew, on his hands and knees guzzling acorns. At first they were terrified of Circe, but when I told them of the promise she had made, we returned to her palace. That night she gave us a great feast. Once my men were asleep, she stroked my cheek and whispered, "Odysseus, your ship is in need of repair. Your sail is torn to shreds. Don't go at once. Give me a little month before you sail away." Oh, right, now I've just gone too far there, I think. Okay, I've accidentally forgotten a slide, so I'll just read that out for you. "A month," I said. But 1 month became 3, then 6, and then 9. After a year, the crew demanded that we leave. Reluctantly, I went to Circe and told her the time had come for us to voyage on. I asked if she might know of a way to placate or outwit the sea god. She shook her head. "I know who would have an answer to that question," the blind prophet Tiresias said. "Where is he?" I said. "I will consult him." Her answer put a chill into my soul. "Tiresias lived and died long ago. If you want to speak to him, you must sail north and north again until you reach the land of the dead." Okay, and that is the end of the 4th chapter now. Okay, so again, we're going to carry on with the 5th chapter now. So I've just got this little image here to make you think about what might happen in the rest of this chapter. Okay, so it's probably Odysseus and his men. Maybe they're in the land of the dead. Let's read on then. So, chapter 5, the land of the dead. "Home is what a gull cries for over rough waters. There is nothing worse for mortal man than wondering how many more storms before my ship could lower its sail. I was haunted by memories of home. The long shadows of the afternoon stretching down the terraces and vineyards, and that ladder every slope, the scent of herbs on the breeze, the tongue of my dog against my palm, great Mount Neriton, the rocks, the great trucks, the sandy beaches, a wife without a husband, and a country without a king. These things compel me to walk among the ghosts of the dead." Circe gave us provisions and blankets. We soon discovered their purpose. The further north that you sail, the colder it becomes. One morning, when we woke, we could see our breath curling from our lips and our nostrils in a silver mist. A few days later, we saw shards of ice hanging from the mast and the rigging. Then we found ourselves approaching a wall of fog that rose from the sea to the sky. I could not tell you for how long we sailed once we passed inside that fog. Day and night had no meaning. There was only an endless, clammy gloom. The prow of the ship hit a sandbank. I and 2 of my companions took a pair of sheep ashore, and we set off. The further we walked, the more uneasy we felt. Everything was infected with the greyness of the mist. All colour bled from our clothes and our skin. My companions became shifting forms in the fog beside me. My thoughts, too, became grey, sluggish, stupid, lumpen. Every doubt and regret I've ever felt crowded in on my mind, each with its own persuasive voice. All of my wounds ached. Every step took a little more effort. It was as if we were wading against the current of an ocean that we couldn't see. We reached the banks of a broad, oily river. It was the river of forgetfulness, and on the other side, hidden from our view by the fog, was the realm of many guests, the land of the dead. We scooped a hole in the sand at our feet. We lifted the heads of the sheep and slit their throats. Their dark blood flowed into the hole. Shapes formed in the fog. We heard a moaning, a hissing. The ghosts of the dead were coming, summoned by our sacrifice. We saw young brides, warriors, with gaping gashes, gurgling children. The sight of them made my soldiers shake with horror. Most of the spirits of the dead have lost all memory of their previous life. They are stupid, hungry wraiths until they can drink the blood of a mortal sacrifice. They long to remember their lives. Our blood offering was for one of the few who has kept his mind, the blind prophet Tiresias. So I had instructed my companions to hold back the flickering ghost until Tiresias had drunk his fill. They could do nothing but stand and shake and gape. It was as though they had fallen into some kind of trance. It was left to me to draw my sword and keep the dead at bay. One of the wraiths was as insubstantial as all the others, but he had a dignity, a purpose that the others lacked. Surely this was Tiresias. I guided him with the sound of my voice towards the pool. He cupped his hands and drank. His white eyes twitched in their sockets. What can you see? You are Odysseus. You seek a way back to rocky Ithaca, but it will be hard for you. Poseidon longs to avenge the mutilation of his son Polyphemus. There is only one way that you will see the lights of home again. You must learn humility. You must rein in your desires and those of your crew. During your voyage, you will approach an island that will seem to you the perfect place to land. You'll see cattle grazing, no sign of human life. You will want to stop and feast on their flesh, but Odysseus, be warned. This herd is the prized possession of the sun god Hyperion. If he were to see you harm them, and he is the sun god, he sees all. He would go to Zeus and demand revenge. Cyclops' curse would pursue you relentlessly. If you ever reached your homeland, it would be alone and unknown, and under a strange sail, and there would be danger waiting there where there should be a welcome. If you can overcome this danger, there is another journey that you must take. You must put an oar on your shoulder and walk inland, leaving behind everyone, everything, everywhere you know. At last you will reach a crossroads. There a man will stop you and gaze in wonder at the oar. He will ask you what it is, whether it is some kind of winnowing fan for separating the grain. This is a place where they do not know what an oar is because they do not know what the sea is. This is a place where you truly are nobody. In this place you must plant the blade of the oar in the ground so that the shaft rises up towards the sky. Make a sacrifice to great Poseidon of a ram, a bull, and a breeding boar. Then you will have made your peace with him. If you can do all of these things, your death will come to you in old age from the sea in the vales of sleep like a long-awaited friend. This vision I have seen, it has come to me through a gate of horn. As the sightless seer spoke, more and more of the flickering ghosts gathered around the pool. I saw a sight that then struck me with such a shock of sorrow that I stumbled back and fell into the pool of blood. I turned and ran, screaming, my two companions following me, not knowing why they were running. Soon we were back on the ship and out on the open sea. My companions never asked me what had put me to flight. I never told them that I had seen among the dead the face of my mother. I had been away so long that if I ever reached my homeland, she would not be there. I would never again feel her warm embrace. And that there is the end of chapter 5. So after all that, he realizes then that his mum, he's been away for so long, has actually died and he'll never get to see her again, which is quite a little sad ending to the chapter. So we're going to focus on that chapter now, chapter 5. So we're not going to really look too much into chapter 4. And what I want you to do, first of all, for me, is to collect the best phrases and motive words you can from this chapter. So just rerun through it, go through the slides, and I want you trying to grab the best phrases and emotive words that you can. So I've got some examples down here. So I've got like gurgling children, gaping gashes, hungry wraiths. Okay, so just some ideas. So then you can use this vocabulary into your writing later on. Okay, some really good vocab here. Okay, so you should have paused the video, gone through that chapter, and collected some really good emotive words and phrases. And now what I want you to do is that I want you to imagine that you are, in fact, Odysseus himself, okay? And have a think, what a range of emotions did you go through when you were in the land of the dead? So when you were walking up to that cave and the hole? How were you feeling? How did you feel when you were sailing through the mist before you'd even got to the land? Okay, how were you feeling through all these things? Were you optimistic, hopeful? And then when you got there, what changed? What happened? Okay, so what were you thinking as you approached the place? You can have a think about that. How did you feel about taking your crew into this place? Okay, were you a bit worried that maybe some of them might get hurt? Okay, and how did you feel then? The most important bit, really. How did you feel when you saw your mother among the dead? When you realized you'll never see your mother again? How would that make you feel? So I want you to maybe just list down or have a think at least of some emotions that you'd be feeling throughout as if you were actually Odysseus. And then you are going to complete the task again. I want you to do another diary entry for me, but this time as Odysseus. Okay, so of course, again, your diary entry will begin at the start of the day, and I want you to go through all the key events that happened. So arriving at the land of the dead. So go through when you were sailing through the mist, when you arrived at the land of the dead, walking through the land of the dead, and when you slit the sheep's throat and you saw all the ghosts. How did you feel then? Okay. Speaking to Tiresias, listening to his story, listening to what's going to happen to the rest of your voyage, what to do and not to do. What were you thinking? Were you ever confused? Okay. And then, of course, this last bit, the really important bit that's going to be definitely in your diary. I imagine you'd definitely be writing about this, seeing your mother among the dead. Okay. How did that make you feel that you'll never, ever get to see your mother again? Okay, now just a few reminders. Make sure you're writing your past tense because you're retelling the day. Include lots of emotions and feelings, all the stuff that we've discussed already before. And then try and use some front adverbials and add some parenthesis in there as well, guys. Okay, you've had loads of practice on that now. You should be getting that into your writing. That's important. Okay, thank you very much then. Year 5, get that done for me, and I'll see you later on for our live lesson. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.